When you're at an airport, it's one of the most stressful situations that you could possibly be under. And not just for you, for airport security staff as well. Because remember, your body is producing a massive amounts of flight or fright hormones, and you're breathing them out of your mouth, and airport security staff are picking up on that all day long, every day they work. So they will react to that, and it makes them nervous. Now, this is a very difficult job. I have to point out, first of all, a very difficult job for these people. The turnaround rate is extremely high. It's very stressful because, as I said, they're picking up the hormones that are being, all those stress hormones, and their bodies are reacting to it as well. They don't need people mouthing off to them or telling them off or giving them bad vibes or whatever. Now, you will find some airport security staff members that are complete assholes, and they're so fed up with the job they don't care what they do, and if they can harass you in any way, they'll do it. Or if they feel that you're a big shot and they want to put you down and laugh about it later, they'll do that too. And that causes some passengers to mouth off at the airport security staff. And the airport security staff in the Western nations, this does not include the African continent or the Asian continent, airport security staff will take this individual or individuals out back to a side office or a side room, maybe even in front of the public, and have them remove an article of clothing. This is the equivalent of putting a muzzle on the dog, or pulling the leash on the dog to show the dog who's the boss, because this is their turf, their area, their job, and you're only here temporarily, but you're going to be towing the line. Now, what they don't tell you is that that is an illegal act. In Western nations, not including Africa or the continent of Africa or the continent of Asia, where you could get shot in the head, nobody give a second thought about it or a goddamn about what happened to you. But in Western nations such as Europe, North America, some parts of South America, it's important to know that this type of procedure at the airport is an illegal act if they force it upon you. They have to have your permission. I can't emphasize that enough. You have to agree to that kind of search. This sort of thing happened to Justin Bieber, and it happened to the YouTube personality Pyro Booby, where they have been mistreated in that way. Now, you're nervous, you got to catch a flight, so most guys or girls will agree to this type of search. But if you decide to stand up for your rights, you can actually take charge of the situation and turn it around. Now, here's the procedure, the way this is done. Because it's illegal for these people to do this, these are not police officers, they are not law enforcement. They do have law enforcement on standby at the security section of the airport before you get on the plane. Their job is to make the arrests, and their job is to do the strip search forcibly if, and only if, airport security staff or the police officers there see a gun on you or on your person, or a knife, or a weapon of some other type, maybe even a taser, on your person, or they detect, or their equipment detects a bomb. Then you can be strip searched, but only under law enforcement. They are the only ones who are allowed to do that. Beyond that, if you've done nothing wrong other than mouth off at airport security staff and they're trying to muzzle you, you can fight back against this. It's simply this. You don't say you won't agree to it, because if you won't agree to it, then the airport security staff could say, well, you're not getting on this plane, and that's the end of that. But if you do agree to it, be sure to say in the presence of a lawyer, in which case the airport security staff have got to bring in a legal team to be there before they can remove your shirt or your clothing, any part of your clothing. And also be sure to mention that a judge's order of search has to be issued for this to be done. These are all perfectly legal terms, especially here in Canada. That's how it works here in Canada. They must go to a judge, they must ask for a search warrant to ask you to remove that article of clothing, and then there must be a lawyer presented for you to represent you during this search. Now, the minute you ask or make this statement, you agree to the search, but those two conditions have to be applied. According to the law, this is your rights. You can ask and you can demand for these things, and it's perfectly legal, and they have to comply with it. Now, at this point, security staff will, if he's not present or she's present, they will have to contact the director of that security station and bring them in and convey that this person will not remove their shirt unless there's a lawyer present and there's a judge's court order issued. Now, the director, who probably knows a lot more about this situation at the airport, the director will realize that this is going to lead to several things. It's going to take days to get a court order. Therefore, the airport security office has to pay out of their revenue your hotel expenses, your travel expenses, your food budget expenses, and plus any additional costs getting another flight because they've delayed you. It's all coming out of their budget. It's never coming out of your budget. Plus, they must get you a lawyer. They must pay for the judge as well. They must pay for, I don't know if they have to pay for your lawyer. Most likely they will have to. You may have to sign some documents to get them to do that. But the point is that the director of security operations at any airport in Canada and the Western nations realize that they have to go before a judge and present evidence that they found some type of weapon on you, or you've exhibited some type of behavior or suspicious behavior, that you had a weapon, or that you had bomb equipment, or that you had drugs on you. And they must present this evidence to the judge, because without this evidence, the judge will throw out the request. If they got nothing on you, and you know you haven't committed a crime, you know all you did was mouth off, or maybe you're being just harassed, but because this evidence needs to be there, the director knows that no judge in the Western law-abiding nations, not including Asia or the continent of Africa, because they're not a law-abiding, mostly those countries are not law-abiding. Anything happens to you at the airport, you're on your own. But in the Western nations and the law-abiding nations, the judge is not going to issue any court order of any such without evidence, and they haven't got any evidence because you haven't exhibited any evidence. So therefore the director can only do one thing: release you. And that's how you beat that. And maybe you missed your plane. If you missed your plane and you have to get another plane, or have to stay in a hotel because of that incident, then they have to pay for it. They have to put you in a hotel, they have to feed you, they have to pay for your transportation, and any extra flight costs, they have to cover it. So the director is most likely going to try to get you to go on your way as quickly as possible. It's extremely hard to get information on this. It took me a while to acquire this. Where you would look for it, you have to somehow contact a director of airport security and get the information from them, or maybe even hire a legal advisor and get the information from them. It's extremely hard to get. And I hope that answers any questions you may have on that subject. Yes, and if you would like any follow-up information, if you'd like to research this, go to a university law or legal library. At the university there's bound to be many of those, and go in there and look it up, because don't trust the regular libraries. City libraries probably don't have that information, or if they do, maybe it's written by someone who isn't really has no legal experience at all. you want to go to a law library at a university, they'll be more than happy to assist you in trying to find information on that subject.